people are still very much primed for just immediately reacting. I think, again, the appeal, like the widespread appeal and the excuse making that we saw back in 2020, because that was constant. I mean, BLM had a 70% approval rating in June of that year. I mean, that's crazy. As we've seen, right? All it takes is one thing, and then everything goes haywire. So that's the unknown quantity. That's kind of like the X factor in all this. And of course, the chances of that happening, of something either is bad or just simply looks bad, is going to increase, just because, like I said, the capacity to carry out this mass deportation is only going to increase as time goes on.
Don't you think that people now, though, are more aware of the way that these things function? Like, you remember the whole thing, was it the Texas National Guard or the Border Patrol, the whipping?
Oh yeah, the Border Patrol, yeah.
And like that was dispelled pretty quickly. People were like,
no, that stayed alive for a lot longer than it should have.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, like today, most people would say, but I mean, that year, a lot of people, I mean, yeah, that was like the only thing that got Democrats to the border, right? It was like, so I don't know. You see like stuff that just goes viral on social media still these days, and that aren't as not as like abrupt and in your face about stuff, and people still eat that up. I mean, like example, like when Secretary Hegseth was drinking water, and all these viral posts on X, they're like, oh look, he's drinking on the job, and it's like, no, that's his palm through it. So I don't know. I don't.
I saw a quick clip of that. It was like 3 scotches for a 20
I saw it
minute.
and I was just like, yeah, military guy's drinking some whiskey.
Right. No. Right. So now you take something as insignificant as like potentially drinking to like someone getting injured or someone getting killed in an ICE raid. I don't know. I think people are still very much primed for just immediately reacting. I think, again, the appeal, like the widespread appeal and the excuse making that we saw back in 2020, because that was constant. I mean, BLM had a 70% approval rating in June of that year. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you think that was legitimate, or do you think that was just fear of not saying the right thing? How much? Because there was definitely, I mean, everybody remembers the pictures of people in DC surrounding that woman who was like, and they're just like this, and she's surrounded by basically college kids, and good for her that she never really gave in to them, but that's intimidating, and that really does put a damper on people's ability or people's inclination to stand up and say, no, I don't, and I think this is a bad thing. You were risking a lot by coming out and saying, no, I don't.
Black box on Instagram.
I mean, I had like friends from college doing that, and I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing? What is this? This is amazing. Which is even funnier, because then people are saying no, because then it blacks everything out. Like, you can't see anything that we post. So no, I think that was part of it. And so again, I think large parts of the country are smarter, because I think they kind of realized the scam that particular movement was. But this is new. It's the current thing, right? It's the current thing right now. So I don't know. It's really hard to get. I mean, it's like trying to poll an election, right? I mean, and that's easier to do than trying to poll people's reactions to a crazy incident. So I don't know. That's inherent, right? Because it's chaotic by nature.
Yeah, I think it's a question of that X factor. Is one of those events going to galvanize people to go to the streets? But secondarily, you remember the kids in cages narrative, that literally the cages were built by Barack Obama's administration. That those things being pushed by the likes of CNN and New York Times, they have much less relevance in the discourse today than they did back then, right? They're not driving the discourse anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the result of not just the George Floyd riots in 2020, but I think a large portion of it was because of COVID. I do feel like the majority of people that would consider themselves marginally online, I feel like they're far more savvy about the information that's being given to them, that's being offered. I don't want to say that's being shoved down their throat, because we do have a lot of options. We can, click away. We can not read articles and stuff. And I look at the information, the landscape as more like offering, and people, or like a smorgasbord, or like a tapas. You can go ahead and try a little bit of this, try a little bit of that, but people have the option to say, I don't want to read this, or I don't believe this, so I'm not going to. Now, I think that there's a phenomenon where people tend to put themselves into a bubble when they do that. But at the same time, I do think that you don't have the same penetration with a lie. Pardon me?
I just said, huh.
Yeah, but you know you don't have the same kind of penetration with a lie or with a misrepresentation, because you brought up the photo of the Border Patrol, and before you mentioned it, I was thinking, oh, you know, pictures probably won't have the same kind of impact because we live in an age of video. But then as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, well, actually, no, it was wrong to think that, because that particular picture really did affect a lot of people. But I feel like the picture was backing up a narrative that people already kind of wanted to believe, and there was a whole industry, cottage industry, that was pushing that narrative. I don't feel like there's that same, you know, the industry of you know, discontent has the same impact today.
Well, because and you're bringing up the picture right now, because in order to believe that, you would have to have thought or just assume that Border Patrol is issued whips. And people didn't stop to think, wait, are they issued whips? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, we never heard of this before. Like this, and of course, it was just. I mean, you had a whole, you know, that whole part of the year where it's mostly, I'm going to say it, mostly brown people coming across. But of course, the one time where there might be whipping and it's actually black people involved. So
a very dark brown.
Yeah. It was just bad. It was like the circumstances was bad. But again,
Nigeria, the two Nigerians that day.
No, it was Haitians.
What was it?
It was Haitians.
Oh, they're Haitians?
Yeah,
Okay,
that was during the Del Rio Haitian crisis, where 20,000 of them showed up in a week.
Right.
So yeah, it was just bad. It was just really bad timing.
I mean, who wants to stay in Haiti? They were smart to get out of there.
And so,
I mean, that's why it went viral, right?
Right. Well, right. So, because it's not just a white Border Patrol agent. It's a white on horseback with a quote unquote whip.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. No one. People that were believing that, they never stopped to think, wait, and of course, no, Border Patrol's not issued whips. So I just don't really have faith in people like today. Like a lot of people, obviously, I'm not saying like the majority, but we've just seen too many examples on lesser, like lower stakes, quote unquote controversies than as opposed to, you know, something like that in, like, let's say during an ICE raid in Chicago.
Do you guys think that the size of the protest matters? Because everyone knows that, or not everyone, but most people, especially typically, or specifically guys like you that have been on the ground in these protests, you know that during the day, there are people that you would consider true believers, right? They're there, they believe in the cause, and they're actually there to protest. And those people go home, and the people that are looking to smash things, get buck wild and stuff, those are the guys that either come out at night or they come out later in the day. And that's when the problems start, when riots start, when it becomes, you know, people that are fighting the cops and stuff. And if I'm off base here, please, like I said, you guys have been on the ground, but that's my impression. Is that the case, or?
Well, definitely, whether it was BLM or January 6th, it was always the same. You have a massive group of people who are out there with the intention of protesting peacefully, and then you have a much smaller proportion of that group who are going to use that group as an opportunity to agitate cops. And effectively what you have in these situations, because the police are mobilized to pay attention to the protest, in a place like Kenosha, when they're all focused on defending the courthouse, that then gives opportunity to for people to come from outside, because most of the people who were there on the third night of rioting when the shooting happened were not from Kenosha, and they're going to come in there to loot and to burn things down. So I think the one element that's a little bit different now is that there was such a widespread anti-police sentiment in 2020 that I don't think that all cops are bastards. Can I say that? I don't think it's on the same level that it was. With that being said, to answer your question, if you have a large group of protesters, it only takes a very small proportion of them to get the pepper spray out. And once that happens, a lot of those people who are out there with good intentions turn into lizard brains, because you got pepper spray in your eyes. And Julio, you know well what happens when you get the pepper spray going. It's hard to use your frontal cortex when that takes place.
I mean, I would say that the people, because I would say that even the people, and I would even argue say even the people who want to go out and cause violence, I would say that they're truer believers. I think because Because, and I'll give you an example with the Palestinian protests, right? I've covered a lot. I covered one literally the next day after October 7th. They've been talking. They're talking. They're marching, and you see this kind of online with like different groups, kind of arguing with each other. Okay, you say that there's a genocide happening. You clearly believe it because you're out here. So why are you just going to march around and protest, right? If you truly believe that, like, wouldn't you take more steps to try to stop that? If that's kind of how I'm. So that's why I'm kind of thinking. For like Antifa and BLM, I think that they really believe that America is just so so racist and all that, and that's why they want to go out and attack the federal courthouse and all that. So I wouldn't say that the true believers are only the peaceful protesters. Obviously, yes, like they're out there, but I would say that actually people who probably believe most in the cause are the ones that are willing to actually do more than just march around and have a speech, and that's you see that constant argument between like far left groups about how don't be a protest police, don't help the police, don't we have to do more and all that stuff. So
what is it? Respect. I forget the phrase. Tim says it a lot. It's respect many methods or something along those lines.
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, there's many ways to protest.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of like their signal where it's just like, you guys can do what you want.
I mean, it's a long and short. They might as well be saying snitches get stitches.
Yeah,
right,
Right. Exactly. So it just depends, and obviously, like I said, it depends on what the cause is and what they're out there for. But just generally speaking, and that's why it's even more funny when, particularly with like Antifa and BLM, they say that we're going to abolish we're going to go against the United States government. It's all corrupt. And then as soon as they get arrested, then they start crying about their constitutional rights that they were just rallying against because it's so racist and capitalist and all this other nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, I frequently make a statement or talk about the idea that the left doesn't actually believe in anything. They really are just looking for access to power. So if they can use the Constitution as a way to convince people to not take them to jail or that they're not breaking the law, they will. But as soon as they're not the ones in the crosshairs, then they're like, F your constitutional rights. We don't care about that. The people on
January 6th, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and that's why it's funny because like when USA was being shut down, and then you have all the Democrats be like, "Oh, our sacred Constitution doesn't allow this." Like, you guys crap on that all the time. Like, what are you talking about?
And there's nothing in the Constitution says that there has to be a CIA fronted State Department agency that
gives away billions of dollars.
Exactly. That's one other factor that I think is worth considering. Is Kash Patel he's the FBI director now.
Yeah.
And he, along with Trump, have promised to release the JFK files along with Epstein. And if, 30 years of the dirt is getting dug up, I think people, because if you look at the distrust in the American government historically, that all really started with JFK's assassination. And if we learn that our government had a role in it, which I would argue it did, that could be something that would unify maybe even the left and the right to be angry and take to the streets because, wow, our government was doing this all along.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.